What would you do if the person you trusted the most shattered your dignity in front of everyone? This is the story of Alicia Morgan. A successful and talented woman whose world was turned upside down when her husband humiliated her in a way no one expected. One shocking evening at an exclusive restaurant. Her husband, Darren, threw a cake in her face for refusing to pay the bill, but what Alicia did next left everyone stunned. This story isn't just about betrayal, it's about courage, resilience, and rediscovering your strength when life seems to crumble around you. How far would you go to reclaim your life and self-worth? Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories of inspiration and determination. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts as we unravel Alicia's journey of heartbreak, self-discovery, and ultimate triumph. Alicia's story reminds us all that no matter how dark things may seem, there's always a path to reclaiming your power. Let's begin. Alicia Morgan was no stranger to luxury and high society. Born into one of the most prominent families in the city, she grew up surrounded by wealth, privilege, and the expectations that came with them. Her father, Richard Morgan, was a self-made business tycoon who built a vast empire in real estate. And her mother, Evelyn, was a celebrated philanthropist and art collector. From a young age, Alicia learned the importance of poise and presentation. But behind the glamorous facade, Alicia often felt the crushing weight of her family's legacy. Every accomplishment in her career as an investment strategist was dismissed by critics as a result of her family's influence. When she succeeded, people credited her last name, not her talent. When she stumbled, it was magnified as a failure of the Morgan dynasty. Despite this, Alicia worked tirelessly, carving out a space for herself in a world that often refused to see her as more than a symbol of her family's wealth. It was at one of her family's lavish charity galas that Alicia first met Darren Carter. Amid the glittering gowns, tailored suits, and the hum of polite conversation, Darren stood out. He was charming, confident, and refreshingly unpolished, a sharp contrast to the polished socialites Alicia was used to. Darren, a self-proclaimed architect with a passion for urban renewal, approached Alicia with a warm smile and an easy demeanor that immediately disarmed her. "You're Alicia Morgan," he said, his deep voice carrying a note of admiration. "The one with the sharp mind and impeccable style. You're hard to miss." Alicia was taken aback but intrigued. Darren wasn't like the others who seemed intimidated by her status. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on shared interests like modern art and cityscapes. For the first time in a long while, Alicia felt seen as a person, not just as a Morgan. As their connection deepened over the following weeks, Alicia began to feel a sense of hope she hadn't experienced in years. Darren made her laugh, listened to her frustrations, and seemed to appreciate her for who she truly was. He wasn't bothered by her family's wealth, or so it seemed. But not everyone was as taken with Darren. Alicia's best friend, Naomi, was skeptical from the start. "He's charming. I'll give you that," Naomi said one evening over drinks. "But something feels off. He's too eager. Too perfect." Alicia brushed off her concerns. "Not everyone is out to get me, Naomi. Maybe he just likes me for me." Her parents were more subtle in their skepticism, but their concerns were just as real. During a family dinner, Richard asked Darren pointed questions about his career and background. His tone polite but probing. Darren answered smoothly, but Alicia noticed the slight tightness in his jaw. Later, Darren brushed it off. "I'm not here to impress your dad," he said with a laugh. "I'm here for you." Despite the doubts whispered in her ear, Alicia allowed herself to believe in the fairy tale. Darren proposed less than a year later, and she said yes without hesitation. For Alicia, it felt like a chance at a partnership built on love and respect, a stark contrast to the transactional relationships she had grown accustomed to in her social circle. Yet, subtle red flags lingered just beneath the surface. Darren seemed overly focused on networking at their wedding, inviting influential figures who could help him expand his business. Naomi's warnings echoed faintly in Alicia's mind, but she chose to ignore them. Love, she thought, was about trust and taking risks. Little did she know, the man she had fallen for would soon reveal a side of himself that would shatter the foundation of her life. Alicia's wedding to Darren was nothing short of a dream, a grand affair held in the sprawling gardens of her family's estate. Under a canopy of roses, surrounded by family, friends, and high-profile guests, Alicia exchanged vows with the man she believed would be her partner in love and life. She spared no expense ensuring every detail was perfect. But as she stood at the altar, a tiny voice in the back of her mind wondered if the man beside her truly shared her vision of their future. From the very beginning, Darren's focus seemed less on Alicia and more on appearances. He insisted on inviting influential businesspeople to the wedding, justifying it as an opportunity to expand his professional network. Alicia dismissed her discomfort, telling herself that it was harmless ambition. After all, wasn't it normal for a man to want to build his career? Their honeymoon in Paris provided a brief reprieve, filled with romantic walks along the Seine and laughter over Darren's playful attempts at speaking French. Yet, even then, small cracks began to show. Darren started making casual remarks about her choices. "You're too nice," he said after she struck up a conversation with a shopkeeper. "Not everyone deserves your time." At first, Alicia brushed off his comments, attributing them to his protective nature. But the remarks planted seeds of doubt that would soon grow. Back home, the fairy tale began to unravel. Darren insisted on taking control of their finances, framing it as his responsibility as the husband. Alicia, trusting him, handed over the reins without question. At first, it seemed harmless, just another way of sharing their lives. But soon, she noticed troubling patterns. There were unauthorized withdrawals from their joint accounts, unexplained purchases, and lavish expenses that Darren never discussed with her. When Alicia confronted him, Darren laughed it off. "Relax, Alicia," he said, brushing away her concerns. "I'm making investments for us. You'll thank me later." While his explanation eased her worries temporarily, the unease in her stomach lingered. Darren's behavior extended beyond finances. He began to criticize Alicia in subtle ways, chipping away at her confidence. "You don't need to wear that," he'd say about her professional outfits. "It's too formal. You should try to look more approachable." At business events, he'd interrupt her or dismiss her ideas as impractical. "You're overthinking again," he'd say with a condescending smile, leaving her feeling small and unsure of herself. His control didn't stop there. Darren gradually isolated Alicia from her friends and family. He would find excuses to cancel plans with Naomi, claiming they needed more couple time. He dismissed her parents' concerns as meddling, making Alicia feel torn between loyalty to her husband and the people who had always supported her. "It's just us now, Alicia," Darren would say. "You have to prioritize our marriage." Despite the growing discomfort, Alicia struggled to rationalize Darren's actions. She told herself he was just trying to protect her. To create a better life for them both. She wanted to believe in their love and the promises they had made. Yet, deep down, she couldn't ignore the subtle ways Darren's behavior was eroding her sense of self. As time went on, Darren's need for control became more overt. He began dictating how Alicia spent her days, discouraging her from taking on new projects at work. "You've already achieved more than most people ever will," he'd say. "Why not slow down and enjoy life?" His words sounded caring on the surface. But Alicia couldn't shake the feeling that he was trying to stifle her ambition. The turning point came when Alicia discovered a credit card statement filled with charges she didn't recognize: luxury dinners, expensive gifts, and trips she hadn't been part of. Her stomach dropped as she realized the extent of Darren's financial recklessness. When she confronted him, his reaction was swift and cruel. "You don't trust me," he snapped, his voice rising. "After everything I've done for us? You think you're so much better than me, don't you?" His words cut deep, each one a calculated blow to her self-esteem. For the first time, Alicia saw a side of Darren that terrified her: a man willing to manipulate and belittle her to maintain control. Alicia began to feel trapped, suffocated by Darren's dominance and her own silence. She confided in Naomi one evening, admitting for the first time that her marriage wasn't what she had hoped. "I don't know what to do," she said, tears streaming down her face. Naomi's response was firm but compassionate. "Alicia, you have to take back control. This isn't love, it's control." Despite Naomi's support, Alicia wasn't ready to take action. She told herself things would get better, that Darren would change. But the patterns continued, each incident leaving her feeling smaller, more isolated, and less like herself. Alicia's inner conflict grew as she wrestled with the reality of her situation. She wanted to believe in the man she had married, but the evidence of his manipulation was impossible to ignore. Each day brought a new challenge, a new test of her strength. And yet, beneath the surface, Alicia began to feel a flicker of determination, a quiet resolve to reclaim her life and rediscover the person she had once been. Little did she know, the breaking point was just around the corner. And it would take an act of public humiliation to finally push her to confront the truth. The evening was meant to be a turning point. Alicia had spent days planning the dinner, carefully selecting one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. It was the type of place that demanded reservations months in advance, where the ambience spoke of sophistication, and every dish was a masterpiece. She hoped the elegant setting would help Darren let down his guard and allow them to have an honest conversation. Alicia dressed with care, choosing a sleek black dress that made her feel confident and poised. She was determined to address the growing tension in their marriage: the controlling behavior, the financial discrepancies, and the subtle erosion of her confidence. As they were seated at a corner table beneath the dim glow of a crystal chandelier, she reminded herself that this wasn't just about salvaging their relationship, it was about reclaiming her voice. From the moment Darren sat down, the evening felt off. He exuded his usual charm, joking with the waitstaff and ordering their wine without consulting her. But as Alicia tried to steer the conversation toward meaningful topics, Darren's demeanor shifted. "So, how's work?" he asked casually, swirling his glass of wine. Alicia hesitated, sensing the tension beneath his question. "It's been challenging but rewarding," she said. "We just launched a new initiative focused on sustainable investment, something I've been passionate about for years." Darren smirked, leaning back in his chair. "That's great, Alicia. But don't you think you've done enough? You've already achieved more than most people ever will. Maybe it's time to slow down and focus on what really matters. His words stung. Alicia set down her fork, her stomach tightening. What really matters? Darren. My work is important to me. It gives me purpose. He rolled his eyes, his tone dripping with condescension. Purpose? Let's be honest. Alicia. You're living off your family's legacy. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Maybe it's time you stopped playing the corporate hero and started focusing on us. The remark cut through her like a knife. For years, Alicia had fought to be seen as more than just a Morgan. She had worked tirelessly to carve out her own identity. And Darren's dismissal of her efforts felt like a betrayal. The waiter arrived with their dessert, a decadent chocolate cake garnished with gold flakes. Alicia barely noticed as Darren leaned in, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "You're making a scene," he said, his jaw tight. "Do you really want to have this conversation here?" Alicia held her ground, her voice steady but firm. "Yes, Darren. I do. This isn't just about dinner. It's about everything: your control over our finances, the way you undermine me, and how you've pushed me away from the people I care about." Darren's face darkened, his carefully curated charm crumbling. "You're unbelievable," he hissed. "You think you're better than me, don't you? Just because you come from money?" Before Alicia could respond, Darren grabbed the slice of cake in front of him and, with a swift motion, shoved it into her face. The restaurant fell silent, the clinking of silverware and muted conversations giving way to a collective gasp. For a moment, Alicia sat frozen, the sticky frosting clinging to her skin. The humiliation was overwhelming, the weight of dozens of eyes on her pressing down like a tidal wave. But as the shock subsided, something deeper took over: a surge of clarity and resolve. With deliberate calm, Alicia picked up her napkin and wiped her face, her movements measured and precise. She stood, her chair scraping softly against the floor, and looked Darren directly in the eye. "This is over," she said, her voice steady and unwavering. "You will never humiliate me again." Leaving Darren and the stunned restaurant patrons behind, Alicia walked out into the cool night air. Her heart pounded in her chest. Not from fear but from an overwhelming sense of liberation. For the first time in years, she felt truly free from the constraints of a toxic marriage and the lies she had told herself to keep it afloat. As she stood on the curb waiting for a cab, Alicia made a silent vow: she would never allow anyone to diminish her again. This was the beginning of a new chapter. One where she would reclaim her life and rebuild her sense of self. That night marked the end of her relationship with Darren and the start of her journey toward healing and empowerment. The humiliation she endured at that dinner didn't define her, it strengthened her resolve to take back control of her life. Alicia Morgan sat in her car outside her parents' estate, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. It had been years since she'd turned to them for help. Years since she had let anyone see her vulnerabilities. But tonight, after everything Darren had done, the humiliation, the manipulation, the betrayal, she had no other choice. She was done hiding, done pretending everything was fine. As she stepped through the grand oak doors of her childhood home, Alicia was greeted by the familiar warmth of her father's steady voice and her mother's comforting embrace. "Alicia," Richard Morgan said softly, his stern expression softening into one of concern. "What's going on?" Tears she had held back for months came rushing out. Alicia poured out the truth about her marriage, Darren's controlling behavior, the financial exploitation, the public humiliation at the restaurant. Her parents listened intently, their expressions shifting from shock to anger to unwavering support. "You're not alone in this," her mother, Evelyn, said firmly. "We'll help you get through this." The next day, Richard introduced Alicia to Monica Grant, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney with a reputation for handling high-profile cases involving financial and emotional abuse. Monica listened carefully as Alicia recounted her experiences, jotting notes in her leather-bound planner. "We have a strong case," Monica said confidently. "But we'll need evidence, bank statements, communications, anything that shows a pattern of Darren's behavior." For the first time in months, Alicia felt a glimmer of hope. With Monica by her side, she had someone who believed in her and was willing to fight for her. Gathering evidence against Darren was a painful but necessary process. Alicia spent days combing through bank statements, uncovering unauthorized withdrawals, extravagant purchases, and transactions that had been hidden from her. She found text messages and emails where Darren had manipulated her and their mutual acquaintances, painting himself as the victim. Each discovery was a stark reminder of how much control Darren had taken from her. But it also fueled her determination. With Monica's guidance, Alicia began piecing together the puzzle, building a case that would expose Darren's actions. Meanwhile, Alicia started rebuilding her personal life. She reached out to Naomi, her best friend, who welcomed her back with open arms. Over coffee, Alicia confessed how isolated and ashamed she had felt during her marriage. "You don't have to explain," Naomi said, squeezing her hand. "I'm just glad you're back. I've missed you." Reconnecting with friends and colleagues was both healing and empowering. Alicia began to feel like herself again, rediscovering the confidence Darren had tried so hard to erode. She returned to work with renewed focus, throwing herself into projects that reminded her of her passion and capabilities. Every small victory, whether it was meeting a deadline, hosting a successful meeting, or simply spending an evening laughing with friends, was a step toward reclaiming her life. The divorce proceedings were grueling. Darren arrived in court with his charm turned up to full volume, spinning a narrative that painted himself as the victim. He claimed Alicia had neglected their marriage, prioritized her career over their relationship, and abandoned him without warning. Alicia sat silently as Darren's attorney tried to twist the truth, her composure unwavering. When it was her turn, she spoke with quiet strength, recounting the years of manipulation and control she had endured. Monica, ever the fierce advocate, presented the evidence Alicia had gathered. Bank statements revealed Darren's financial exploitation, while emails and text messages showed his attempts to isolate and manipulate her. Each piece of evidence chipped away at the facade Darren had so carefully constructed. The courtroom was tense as Monica delivered her closing argument. "This case is not about a failing marriage," she said, her voice steady and commanding. "It's about one person's deliberate and sustained efforts to strip another of their autonomy, dignity, and financial security." Alicia Morgan trusted Darren Carter, and he betrayed that trust at every turn. Darren's attorney attempted to salvage his case, but the evidence was overwhelming. By the time the judge adjourned the proceedings, it was clear where the decision was heading. Leaving the courtroom that day, Alicia felt an unfamiliar sense of calm. The outcome was no longer in her hands, but she knew she had done everything possible to fight for herself. For the first time in years, she felt proud not just of the progress she had made, but of the woman she was becoming. In the weeks that followed, Alicia threw herself into her work and personal growth. She launched a new initiative at her firm focused on ethical and sustainable investments. A project that reignited her passion for her career. She reconnected with colleagues she had drifted away from and built new relationships that were founded on mutual respect and trust. Her personal life flourished as well. Alicia spent more time with her parents, finding comfort in their unwavering support. She hosted dinner parties with friends, laughed more, and let herself dream about a future free from Darren's shadow. The day the judge ruled in her favor, Alicia felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Darren was held accountable for his actions, both financially and legally. The victory wasn't just a legal one, it was a validation of her strength, resilience, and determination to reclaim her life. On a quiet evening, Alicia sat on the balcony of her apartment, a glass of wine in hand, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. For years, she had felt trapped, suffocated by Darren's control and the expectations placed upon her. But now, as she gazed out at the horizon, she felt an incredible sense of freedom. Her scars from the past would always remain, but they no longer defined her. Alicia had found her voice, her confidence, and her purpose once again. And with each step forward, she was building a life filled with hope, strength, and endless possibilities. This was her journey to reclaim her life, and she was just getting started. After the dust settled and the court ruling was behind her, Alicia Morgan stepped into a new chapter of her life with a sense of purpose and clarity she hadn't felt in years. The journey had been arduous, but it had also been transformative. Professionally, Alicia found herself invigorated, no longer burdened by Darren's controlling presence. She threw herself into her work with renewed passion. She spearheaded a groundbreaking initiative focused on sustainable investments, a project that combined her financial expertise with her desire to create meaningful change. The initiative gained national recognition, solidifying Alicia's reputation as a leader in her field not because of her family name, but because of her own accomplishments. But it wasn't just her career that flourished. Alicia also rekindled relationships that Darren had tried to sever. She reconnected with her best friend, Naomi, who had been a steadfast source of support. The two spent countless evenings catching up over coffee and laughter, rebuilding the friendship that had once been strained. Her relationship with her parents also grew stronger. The experience had reminded Alicia of the importance of family, and she found comfort in their unwavering love. Richard and Evelyn were no longer just her parents, they were her allies, her cheerleaders, and her refuge during the toughest times. Beyond her career, Alicia launched a nonprofit foundation focused on empowering women who had faced financial and emotional abuse. The foundation provided resources, legal support, and career training to help women rebuild their lives. For Alicia, this was more than a passion project, it was her way of turning her pain into purpose. As Alicia stood in her office one evening, gazing at a framed photo from the foundation's launch event, she reflected on how far she had come. The woman staring back at her in the mirror was no longer the timid, uncertain person Darren had tried to mold. She was strong, confident, and unapologetically herself. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had taught her invaluable lessons. She had learned to trust her instincts, to set boundaries, and to stand up for herself even when it felt impossible. Most importantly, she had learned that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness, it was an act of strength. One evening, Alicia hosted a dinner party to celebrate the success of her foundation. Surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues, she felt a sense of gratitude she couldn't put into words. As the evening drew to a close, Alicia raised her glass in a toast. To new beginnings, she said. Her voice steady and warm. To finding strength in adversity and rediscovering who we are. To everyone here who reminded me that I wasn't alone. Even when I felt like I was. And to the future one filled with hope, love, and possibility. The room erupted in applause. And Alicia felt tears prick her eyes. This wasn't just a celebration of her accomplishments, it was a testament to the people who had stood by her and the resilience she had discovered within herself. As the party wound down, Alicia stepped out onto her balcony. Gazing at the city lights. The scars from her past were still there. But they no longer defined her. Instead, they served as reminders of her strength and her journey. To anyone watching her story, Alicia had one message: you are stronger than you think. You are worth more than you know. And no matter how dark things may seem, there's always a way forward. Her journey was far from over. But Alicia knew one thing for certain: she was finally free. And the future was hers to embrace. Alicia Morgan's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of self-worth, resilience, and the strength we gain from leaning on the support of others. Her journey wasn't easy. But it shows that even in the darkest moments, there is a path to reclaiming your life and rediscovering your inner strength. If there's one takeaway from Alicia's experience, it's this: you are never truly alone. Whether it's reaching out to family, confiding in friends, or seeking professional help, there are people who care and resources available to help you rise above any challenge. We hope Alicia's story has inspired you to reflect on your own strength and the value of standing up for yourself. If you've faced similar struggles or have a story of resilience to share, we'd love to hear from you. Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else who needs it. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. And share this video with your friends and loved ones who might find it meaningful. Remember, life's challenges may leave scars, but they also make us stronger. Like Alicia, you too can reclaim your life and build a future filled with hope and purpose. Thank you for watching. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Stay strong. Stay hopeful. And remember, you are worth it.